I'm standing here in my third bay garage, which has all of my yard tools, lawnmowers, all this kid stuff. But if you flip it around, you will see my street sign collection. This is what I call my sign shop. There are about a few hundred signs in here, and I've been collecting signs for a really long time. And I've always been interested in street signs since I was a really young age. My mom would tell me that when we were driving and I was in a car seat, I would make her read all of the overhead green guide signs to me as we were driving down the highway. From there, I would play with a lot of Hot Wheels and a lot of toys that involved signs. I was obsessed with the Indiana Driver's Manual because it has pictures of signs in it. And I would cut these signs out, glue them on toothpicks, stick them in styrofoam, and then drive my Hot Wheels along them as if the styrofoam was the side of the road. I also had a lot of train set related stuff, not an actual train set, but more so the signs and the telegraph poles that came with train sets. I used to play with a lot of this stuff when I was a kid. And when I was about 6 years old, I acquired my very first street sign, the real deal. This is an advanced railroad crossing sign. First sign that I ever added to what was to become a very big collection. After that, one by one, I started acquiring more signs. And I was about this tall at the time. And I would roll this sign out of the shed where we used to keep them. And I would set them up around our sidewalks, around our house, around our driveway, and I would drive my big wheel around them like I was actually driving on the highway. But as any collector will tell you, things escalate very, very quickly, and here we are. I now have a collection of a few hundred street signs, which is more than enough for me. My goal with my collection is not to get every single sign there is. That would be impossible. There are literally thousands of different variations of street signs, messages, different sizes, and I'm not a completist. So just when you have a collection like this, you have to edit some of it. You have to keep it down, keep it manageable, and that's what I'm trying really, really hard to do. So let's take a look at how everything is organized. You could go back to all of my videos on my YouTube channel to see the different kinds of signs that I pull out of this collection. I'm really not going to pull a lot of signs out right now. This is more about just how I store them. I installed this new Gladiator shelving unit, and I probably could have another one, but I just don't have all the room in my garage to fully dedicate to this sign collection. I've limited myself to one shelf. I'm not filling this up anymore. But as you can see, there are signs all around me, but I've promised myself that this is my way of keeping control of my sign collection. You could see the video that I posted of me putting together this shelving unit, and it was a chore. I had to pull all the signs off my old shelving unit, organize them in the garage by size, which is how everything is organized here, disassemble the old shelf, install the new shelf, put all the signs back up, and then I had to do it all over again because I didn't like how it was initially organized. But the way I have these signs organized takes a lot of inspiration from sign shops, from sign companies, the actual city and street department, and how they keep their signs and their shops very, very organized. And it makes the most sense to organize everything by size. And some of these sign shops are so big that they even organize signs by category. So like regulatory, warning, parking, stop signs, etc. My collection's not that big. I don't have all that many signs. So the biggest method of organization that I have, first and foremost, is by size. And then within each section are a mix of signs from various categories. But these shelves are intended to hold about 1,000 pounds per shelf. And I know I've exceeded that limit. These street signs get really, really heavy. Once I loaded all of these signs onto this shelf, I noticed that the bottom shelf was sagging right in the middle. It was about 1/4 inch lower than it was on the end. So I had to pull all those signs out and install some reinforcing blocks underneath the shelf to give it some more support. And just like the sign shops, I had to add some vertical support bars in here. I just cut those out of wood because these signs are so heavy. If these compartments were too wide, the weight of all of those signs would make it very, very difficult to flip through. I have enough trouble with compartments that are only this wide. So the vertical bars about every 12 inches or so make it so that it's very, very organized and I'm able to get through all of those signs without them collapsing on each other or onto my hands. So here we have 18 by 24 flat signs. That means they're flat on the front and the back. And then that moves into 18 by 24 embossed signs, which are stamped. So these are the older style signs. And a lot of these signs are all bent up. They're not exactly flat. Pretty much most of my collection, just about all of it, are signs that have been posted out in the wild and they've been decommissioned. Signs usually have a lifespan of about 10 to 12 years, and then they're replaced or they're resurfaced and new signs are made out of the old signs. But when it comes to some of these signs that are bent up, or some of these embossed signs, which some of these embossed signs go back to the 1940s and 1950s, these don't stack up very, very cleanly and neatly because the bends push the signs apart. So I just try to get as much in here as possible and try to keep it as organized as I can. But you can see these signs are pretty heavy, and it's not uncommon that as I'm going through that my fingers get caught in between stacks of signs just because of the way they fall back into place. Here are 24 by 24 stop signs. I have yield signs in here. Here are shields. And then we get into 24 by 24 regulatory and warning signs. More of those all along here. These are the flat signs. And then these are the same size, 24 by 24, but these are the embossed signs. Down here are 24 by 36, mostly regulatory construction signs. That all goes through here. Here are some odd shaped signs, so more stop signs, school signs, yield signs, shields are in there. And then we have 30 by 30 warning signs and regulatory signs. These here are larger signs. These are 30 by 36. Some of these have the original mounting hardware on them, which I do need to get my Sawzall and take them off. I really don't need the mounting hardware attached on them. They're rusty, they're not in really good shape, and it just takes up more room than it needs to if that mounting hardware wasn't on there. Here's another relic from my childhood. These were signs that they sold in the toy store, and I think they had 5 different versions of them. I've got 3 of them: a stop sign, do not enter, and no parking. What I really loved about these, even at a young age, is that they are embossed. So I always loved the embossed signs. I thought there was something really cool about them. Up on the top of this shelf here are 12 by 18 signs, lots of parking signs. I do have some old embossed warning signs in here as well. Stop sign from the Auto Club of Southern California. We don't have this all the way out here in Indiana, but this is an early stop sign from probably the 1930s. Down at the bottom are some of the longer signs. Those can either be horizontal signs or vertical signs, but they fit really nice at the bottom of this shelf. Over here are some really large signs that don't fit on the shelves. Road closed signs here, which are just massive. There's a construction sign. Here's some overhead street name signs. Those are about 6 feet tall. Here's some interstate button copy signs. Stuff that's really, really big. Cool. I don't like picking favorites, but if I had to choose, this sign up here would be in my top 5. That's the sign that stood in the corner of the yard of the home I grew up in Northwest Indiana. Pretty neat that I have that in my collection. To most collectors, that sign wouldn't mean anything. To me, it means a lot. I have most of my stoplights up here hanging, and it makes a nice display, but my main goal there was organization, just to get them off of the floor. Prior to them hanging up, I had them all stacked in piles on the floor, and that just takes up a lot of room. I have a corner over here with more traffic signals, stuff that's either too big and bulky to hang up. Some of them down there are pretty damaged, so they're just going to live in the corner. Over here, I have smaller signs that are tiny enough to fit really nice inside of this milk crate. Some more signals down here, and then down at the bottom I have some cross street name signs, which again, signs are big, they're bulky. These street name signs take up more room because they're assembled like this, so I've just tried to organize them in a way that they're not just piled up in a corner like they previously were. Over here I have another stack of larger signs that don't fit on the shelves, railroad crossbucks, but here in the front are some signs that I recently acquired and added to my collection, so I still need to file those away. And then up here is my sign wall. So about every 4 weeks, usually during the spring and the early winter months, I change out the sign wall. I pick a theme, I pull all the old signs down, I go through my collection and find signs that match up with that theme, and then I build a new wall. Right now is the latest wall, which are signs that have multiple arrows on them. But you could go back through my whole YouTube channel. I have a playlist of building sign walls where I pull every sign out of the collection. I talk about the sign, where I got it, what the significance of that sign is, any interesting information about that sign. And usually I pull out a whole pile of signs, and then I have to edit down and figure out which are the best signs that'll fit the best up on the sign wall. I built this sign wall a few years back, and I'm not a carpenter, so it was a pretty easy build. I plan on doing a video at some point to show how I've built those shelves, but it's really, really easy. It's iron pipe and wood and some paint. That's all it took. And I took inspiration from picture ledges that you would buy from Target and hang in your living room and put photo frames on them. A lot of collectors hang up their signs. They permanently mount them onto the wall. And I actually did that in my old house. And as soon as I did it and I hung all those signs up and I stepped back and looked at it, I regretted it immediately. The reason being is I was too committed. I had permanently installed those signs onto the wall. And the whole point was to showcase as many signs as I could. And I figured the best way to showcase as many signs as I could was to build a system that I can switch signs out. The challenge with a collection like this is that oftentimes I will forget what I have. So the cool thing about the sign wall is it allows me the opportunity to go through my entire collection one by one and film it and post it on YouTube and sort of get reacquainted with some of these signs that I may have forgotten about. So I'll pull those signs out and give them some face time. Otherwise, they're just buried in the shelves and nobody can see them. Now I feel like I can enjoy my collection more by having a sign shelf that features multiple signs at a time. And the different themes that I come up with are a way to go through all of the signs in my collection and make sure that I, at some point, am able to get most of my signs up on the wall. And I say most of the signs because some of the signs that I have are too big and unfortunately will never be able to be put up on the wall. But I featured stop and yield signs, back to school signs, speed limit signs, Indiana signs, construction signs, and I have a whole notebook of ideas for future theme walls, so stay tuned for that. Okay, that is my sign collection. If there are any signs or any categories that you're wanting to see, make sure you drop them in the comments. I'm always welcoming ideas on themes for new sign walls. And if you want to follow along with all the signs and content and videos that I post, when I post them, make sure you hit the subscribe button. I'm also over on Facebook, I'm on Instagram and on TikTok, and I hope to see you in the next video.